Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello and welcome to the 8th module in the series Marketing Management, a VUCA perspective where we are discussing core concepts. I am your friend and guide on this amazing and invigorating marketing journey, Siddhiprad Bhattacharya. We have discussed at length all the aspects of segmentation, targeting, and positioning, with how it plays out in the case of building communities, how to foster them, how to keep them engaged through natural creation of differentiation points and a great amount of storytelling. Things that get the consumer focused and in a collaborative space with you as a brand, and how they can build the brand alongside you and enjoy in that particular shared experience. You build rituals, you build belief systems, and you build certain aspects of it which people can contribute to and feel that it is something that is co-owned for them as a space. The idea behind this is to make it impactful. You have to create conducive environments around the brand so that the impact of whatever your brand activities are, they are seen and remembered. Remember that experiences are what people take home, and these experiences build the familiarity that is the bridge between interest, desire, and finally action towards adopting a particular product or brand. So therefore, you have to explore how brands from industry leading companies have managed to establish a deep trust amongst consumers, and we'll pick up a couple of examples of the same in today's conversation. Today, we are covering two big giant brands of Unilever, Axe and Dove, as well as a banking brand, First Direct, in our conversations as we explore how branding has been utilized by these particular brands and they have actually been able to woo their consumer their way. So, without further ado, we'll understand successes at brand leader levels, where we first dive into Unilever's Axe and Dove brands and then look at First Direct. Now, in terms of global prowess, there is hardly any other brand which comes even close other than Procter & Gamble to Unilever. Unilever is one of the world's largest FMCG companies and operates in more than 190 plus countries. It has the widest spread amongst many FMCG players, and it is known for very, very strong brand positioning. It keeps its brand positioning at its core so that people relate with it, and they are always looking at that particular brand to suffice their needs and enhancing the lifetime value of that particular customer. They also put a lot of focus on sustainability initiatives and ensure that the consumer is always feeling nice about participating with that particular brand because of the benefits towards the ecology and towards community at large. And that also aids the market adaptation of that particular brand as well, because you're innovating constantly. You're bringing new facts and facets to the fore, which helps people buy into what the brand has in terms of its promise. This set of case studies explains how Unilever navigated the challenges that they had, disrupted the markets where they were present, and innovated to that extent so that the products found better purchase in these markets. Now, Unilever typically has a very, very market-driven approach. So before we jump into the brands itself, let's understand a little bit about the parent organization also, and holds innovation at its core, which is one of the key features defining how Unilever operates in the markets wherever it is present. Now, they understand consumer needs and market gaps. This is the first level of ingress from which they approach the market. They use deep consumer research. We have spoken of consumer research previously also. Consumer research helps to drive product innovation so that it meets the exact needs of consumers at a very, very large swath. And one example of this is the Dove Real Beauty campaign, where they found that beauty is not just about the very, very plasticky model like beauty which is showcased by other beauty brands, but actually beauty ideals that come to self confidence when we speak of real people who can look equally beautiful. The other one was Lifebuoy's hygiene awareness, which promoted hand washing in developing markets. A lot of that work happened in India, and India has been at the forefront as a test bed for Unilever's branding strategy. Key strategies and differentiation which Unilever has brought into play has been stemming from emotional branding. They create a very nice cue to help people remember the real reasons why one must do certain things, and brands become enablers in that entire narrative. And this is always driven by purpose. The purpose is something which finally derives why one must do whatever they do. So Dove, Lifebuoy, Ben & Jerry's, a lot of sub-brands under the Unilever umbrella have actually put this into play. Localized product adaptation has also been a part of what they do. So for example, Kisan ketchup in India with local flavor preferences has always been at the mainstay of what Kisan products are, and that is how the brand also pushes it forward. They've also kept very, very strong leadership sustainability in their core, and they've reduced plastic waste, they've done ethical sourcing, and they've always respected carbon neutral goals. So all of these factors, although not tom-tommed, but are part of the larger factors that help Unilever keep a very, very above water kind of space when it comes to their public face. They've also embraced digital transformation very well and supported e-commerce growth in their various activities. They have embraced these digital and data analytics aspects. E-commerce wise, they have expanded from gotten into a direct to consumer channels and personalized their product recommendations. They've used AI and big data in a big way, and they have taken insights. The research bit has also now expanded into AI based data points which they cover and then analyze and refurbish into the marketing, targeted advertising and supply chain efficiency aspects. They've done smart packaging and traceability of how the product moves in the market. So, they put QR codes for consumer engagement, and they have product authenticity also mapped into the entire product packaging experience. They've also done successful digital campaigns. Dove's Digital Real Beauty Sketches was one viral campaign that boosted brand trust and accessed data-driven advertising, which leveraged AI to personalize male grooming campaigns, is also something they've gotten into. It also has smart stores, which are AI-powered in-store experiences for tailored product recommendations. So they have been innovating constantly. The tenet of innovation has been percolated throughout their entire set of operations, whether it be advertising, marketing, communications, whether it be research, data collection, analytics, whether it be smart store experiences, whether it be personalized selection of products and experiences for consumers. They have been at it throughout. And finally, they've also gone into sustainability and corporate social responsibility, or CSR, where they are leading in the entire sustainable business practices segment. Unilever's Sustainable Living Plan 2010 to 2020 focused on reducing carbon footprint, water use and plastic waste as part of their entire set of offerings. The palm oil sustainability part was committed to 100%. Sustainably resourced palm oil was used for that particular product building. Plastic reduction initiatives were brought in, and the goal was to cut plastic use by 50% by 2025. Purpose-driven brands and social impact was given a lot of prevalence. Lifebuoy's hand washing initiative educated 1+ billion people on hand hygiene and how it helped prevent diseases. A very, very notable occurrence of this, it started with rotis as a campaign. Rotis branded with Lifebuoy during Kumbh, way back, before the Kumbh achieved the huge scale of appreciation and knowledge that it has in the current episode. Earlier Kumbh saw a very, very simple execution of rotis, branded, burnt and branded with a message that whether people who were about to consume the rotis, did they actually wash their hands with Lifebuoy before they consumed food, because it was a simple way to tell them to remove the germs and all the other microbial matter from their hands before they consumed food, thereby reducing the chance of diseases. Ben and Jerry's activism also showed strong advocacy for climate action and social justice, and they've also showcased their fair trade commitment by ethical sourcing for Lipton Tea and Magnum Cocoa, brands that have been part of the larger offering set from Unilever. Now, when we look at Axe, which has been the very, very classical male grooming brand, this is one brand which has been at the forefront of whatever Levers has been doing. So, the introduction to Axe, also known as Link in some markets, has been part of their entire story of how male grooming is perceived from within the aspects of Unilever. What the product offerings in this space are body sprays, deodorants, body wash and shampoo, and the market reach is huge. Launched in 1983, they've expanded to the US in 2002 and now currently are sold in over 70 plus countries. So, they have a worldwide spread that way, and the target audience for Axe is very typically the male consumer, because they have promoted everything around the male consumer's grooming experience, and they have focused on the insecure novice segment, where they've looked at seeking the support of geeks and nerds and trying to instill confidence in them when it comes to attracting women. The insight here really is social awkwardness. So, a very large swath of people have a certain amount of social awkwardness when it comes to engaging with the opposite sex, and that is typically a point of contention for a lot of men. And in order to give them that little support that helps them feel comfortable, confident and able to make that transition, is where Axe plays a key role. It is aspirational yet approachable as a brand, and that positioning helps these people, especially the ones they have identified as geeks and nerds, people who may be capable but are not very sociable in that sense, to have the confidence to make that particular jump. In terms of marketing strategy, the narrative building which has happened has used a lot of humor and a sexual appeal in advertising, so that they are able to craft that particular cover story for the male who is feeling inadequate. That inadequacy is what they are trying to cover. The signature ad style of Axe showcases average looking men attracting beautiful women after using Axe, and it tends to solve that mental block which they feel they must cover, because approaching very, very beautiful women is something which is considered too much of a task for average looking men. The creation of a relatable yet exaggerated fantasy is what has been promoted throughout. Now, in terms of advertising and engagement, they have used unconventional media usage, and their online videos are extremely edgy. Why? Because it promotes that particular fantasy, because it's a large challenge as seen by the audience. And so, therefore, their incorporation has been through video games, through chat rooms, through mobile apps, and even in-person promotions. For example, Axe Patrol in Colombia. So, they have done all of these things in order to appear very, very relatable to the audience. It's almost like putting an arm around a friend and saying, don't worry, I've got your back. Other than this, They have invested in traditional advertising, which is TV, magazines, and digital campaigns, and kept the entire pot boiling continuously. So, the same messaging has been hammered across a variety of media and ensured that the audiences in mind have received that particular piece of information. Now, when they look at the media strategy, they have focused that particular placement on male oriented networks. So, again, there is a very typical choice of where men typically consume their media from. So, MTV, ESPN, Spike, Comedy Central are locations where men typically end up consuming their content. MTV for music, ESPN for sports, Spike and Comedy Central again for other varied content pieces. Now, partnerships have been hatched with sports organizations like the NBA and the NCAA, so that within sporty scenarios and settings, the product placement is kept very upfront and center. And they've also looked at presence in men's magazines like Playboy, Rolling Stone, GQ, and Maxim, so that they're able to attract the eyeballs of the intended target audiences. In terms of the digital space strategy, the website theaxeffect.com has had lots of campaigns piling back into that particular last mile center point, and they've used campaigns across Facebook and Twitter to herd menfolk into that particular portal and give them the Axe experience. Now, the brand has evolved over time as well. So, in order to stay relevant with young consumers, they have annual fragrance launches, and they have had a slight shift in positioning also. They've moved away from the typical male stereotypes of machoism and has actually started addressing the awkwardness which we spoke of in a more direct way, and say things like Find Your Magic, which is a campaign focusing on modern masculinity. They have actually done a very good job of following trends that are there and reflected in society. So, cultural branding is a big part of what Axe has actually followed in order to ensure that as the consumer's taste, requirements, needs and desires they evolve, the brand also shadows those particular scenarios. And then there are campaigns like Is It Okay for Guys, which are ads addressing all the societal pressures on men. Because typically with the rise of modern day activism like feminism, etc., a lot of women's voicing of concerns gets prime coverage, but men's issues do not see that kind of coverage in popular media, and hence addressing those societal gaps and pressures that fall on men has also become a big need and now is getting voiced, but a brand doing it gives them again that first mover advantage. And that is something which Axe has played right to the hilt. So, that is a space from which Axe has actually helped its brand evolve and also kept its audience and communities close knit to where it is at. On the other hand of things, Dove, which is a more female centric brand, it has had a history and repositioning since 2003. Now, earlier on, it used to very clearly focus on functional benefits, and when India saw Dove get launched, it would speak of 1 quarter moisturizing cream. This was in their soap bar. But the 1 quarter moisturizing aspect is something which they have harped on throughout, whether it be shampoo, whether it be conditioning, whether it be gel, whether it be even non-cream based products. This 1 quarter moisturizing is a constant refrain in what Dove says to its consumers, typically women. And that moisturizing cream aspect is the emotional connect, because moisturizing helps make your skin feel soft and supple and probably emotionally speaking, reduce the possibility of it looking aged. And this is a big insight again when it comes to women. The women in this case is fighting aged looking skin. So constantly women are trying to look younger, and that is the constant tussle which has been stoked again by the brand. So Dove campaign for real beauty actually covers the not picture perfect women, but the regular women who feature in everybody's life, and but they also must feel beautiful, and hence Dove has taken it upon itself to redefine beauty standards for women, and has said that it is okay for women to feel all right in their own skin, and their beauty and their beauty standards to be accepted and respected. The brand has done it by taking up a social conversation around it, and has driven a whole host of conversations around body shaming, around raciality, around being comfortable in your own skin, and even age shaming for that matter. So a lot of things have been done by the brand, keeping in mind the way women look at themselves. Their self-deprecation has been looked at very, very critically by the brand, and it has been passed along as a message that they do not need to keep continuing doing that. And that has been one of the centerpieces of the brand's communication. So Dove, again, in typical Unilever style, has gone into deep research and found that only 4% of women worldwide actually see themselves as beautiful. This was the main penny dropping moment from which everything emanated. Beauty is an inner sensibility. It is a sensibility of how you are carrying yourself in the world outside. And so therefore, with that particular premise in mind, women feeling better about how they look is something that has been promoted, and hence has translated into the Real Beauty campaign. The opportunity to challenge unrealistic beauty ideals as set by society and fashion and various other players in there have been challenged by brand, and it has been turned towards the realistic side of things. So hence there is a brand promise that beauty in all shapes, sizes, ages and colors is welcome. And that is precisely what the brand also promotes and it also fosters. The Real Beauty campaign is one campaign of note which was an international success. In the first phase, it featured non-traditional models and they had interactive engagement with the brand, and this was again made possible using digital. So hence through that they got a lot of traction that way. And the second phase of this was to improve the positioning of body positivity through candid imagery, and that candid imagery actually allowed people, especially women, to look at themselves without that sense of societal shame, and that actually helped them feel more liberated and more included in the general scheme of things. And then the third part of it was very, very strongly put in terms of pro-age, because over time, and this is one of the biggest fears women have, that as they grow older, their beauty tends to fade. So it was challenging beauty age limits as a larger agenda, and women could feel beautiful at any particular age. And that is typically how the brand conditioned the thinking of its audiences and also gave them a certain reason to celebrate their individual beauties. So that is where the Real Beauty campaign from Dove really took off and integrated with their audiences. Dove also took that from advertising and a step further. So they created something called a self-esteem fund, where they empowered women through confidence building. So they created award-winning Dove films. Evolution in 2007 was a digital transformation of a woman into a supermodel, a regular-looking woman who through Photoshop was transformed into a supermodel. And then there was Onslaught, where a young girl overwhelmed by beauty industry pressures was seen succumbing to it, then fighting back. Sketches in 2013 was the most watched ad ever in its time of 175 million plus views, and it explored self-perception versus reality. So all of these campaigns were very hard hitting and they were very impactful when it came to the understanding of how society and women's thought processes manage each other and how they actually interact with each other. These are aspects which brought forth a very, very strong understanding of how women perceive themselves and how society looks at them. And it was the way of positioning which the brand did through its very, very clear stance of keeping beauty equalized through age, race, color, time, and what have you. So that is how the brand took a particular positioning and created a differentiated space for itself. All of these ideas that you're listening to today are parts of the execution leg of whatever we've learned so far in the segmentation, targeting, and positioning theory. This is all STP in action. You also have multi audience targeting here, because the moment you're taking on across race and across color and across age audiences, you're getting a lot of newer entrants into that particular space to whom you're marketing your product. Again, if you look at the comparison of Axe and Dove's marketing strategies, you'd see that when it comes to each of these aspects like target, Axe has a very specific young men aspect of 18 to 24, the awkward age for men, whereas Dove is speaking with women of all ages. So it is a typical choice of what the marketer wants to do with their intended target audiences. The kind of tone which Axe employs is humorous and aspirational, whereas in the case of Dove, it is emotional, very truthful, hard-hitting, and empowering, because it passes on a very big societal message. The message itself in the case of Axe is confidence through attraction, whereas in the case of women it is confidence through self-love. In the case of engagement, various media choices were available on Axe, which was digital, social, and experiential, and in the case of Dove, it was primarily social, and in terms of impact, it got it done through a lot of storytelling. Axe, as a result, has become a dominant player in the male grooming industry, and it has redefined marketing in an already saturated market. And Dove, in its own turn, has seen sales growth from $2.5 billion to $6 billion in 15 years, and it has led to self-esteem conversations. This is critically important because even more than the actual sales value, it is the actual brand value which has been positively affected in the case of Dove, and a lot many people in the general sense of the audience, they dial back to what they have seen and heard and discussed because of the communication coming from a brand, in this case Dove. So that has actually sparked a lot of conversation. So this is actually a marketer's intended dream to spark conversations in a massive way, and obviously preferably in a positive way, so that they're able to drive the conversations the way they see fit. So again, in terms of pillars of competitive advantage, you've got cost leadership, you've got differentiation, you've got innovation, and you've got brand strength, but primarily brand strength here, which you have actually seen in advantage here. Now, what are the key takeaways from Unilever's success formula? They've had always that consumer-centric approach. Why is this important? Because insights from research, they drove the product innovation and localized the strategies to each geography as was required. They created sustainability also as a differentiator. They put in ethical sourcing, carbon neutrality, and plastic reduction as part of their conversation spiel. They had a digital first transformation where they used AI, data analytics, and e-commerce leadership to stake their claim, and very, very strongly emotional branding and purpose-driven campaigns, whether you look at Dove, Loveboy, Ben & Jerry's, and whosoever. And what the lessons which others could gain from this in terms of growth and adaptation are, you have to stay ahead of consumer trends, which is where research plays a big role in understanding what the consumer is all about. You have to then engage them digitally, add to their wellness and talk about sustainability so that they remember you for these particular points. Then in terms of innovation and digitalization, they have invested deeply and they have created an AI driven marketing and e-commerce ready platform through which they get to their end consumers, and they have actually demonstrated that purpose and profit both can go hand in hand. So brands with strong values build long term loyalty, and this is typically how they can stretch the value of that particular brand over a long period of time. So Unilever has actually showcased how it has tailored marketing communication. Access revolution from stereotypical masculinity to modern inclusivity has also been a shift in the way the narrative has evolved. Dove has shown success by breaking the beauty norms and fostering empowerment amongst women across ages. And together you can see what Unilever has consistently done is it has worked towards creating effective brand storytelling, and that has created deeper emotional consumer connects at every strata of the audience, and that is something which will keep giving dividends over a longer period of time. Now, why market disruption and evolution are important and how you can achieve them through a narrative. When it comes to FMCG, it is very easy to do. You have a very simple physical product where you can talk reams about its use, about the hopes and aspirations it drives, etc. When it comes to something which is more intangible, like services from banking, then it becomes very difficult to get it across the board. So market disruption, evolution in banking is through a certain case study here where we showcase how banking institutions adapted to changing customer needs and technological advances. You will see that the core thing that does not change in the approach is research. Research and understanding of what the consumer is all about, where they are, what they feel like, what will help them move very clearly in favor of the brand is something which is core to success. The first case study is First Direct UK, how a telephone-only bank disrupted the UK banking sector and evolved into a digital-first brand. And the second part is MoneyLink International. This was the development of a mobile banking system before the era of banking apps. Again, part of the First Direct story. So the key takeaways from these are how innovation helps, customer-centric thought process and positioning helps, and how you can quickly adapt in financial services so that your innovative capabilities actually keep you ahead of competition. Now, we have to dial back to understand this to UK in the 90s and understand what banking as a landscape was then. Banking was dominated by very clear 4 traditional conservative banks, and services were required in person, visits to branches, often involving intimidating managers because they would almost make it seem like they were doing you a favor by taking your case and giving you a certain service. So this intimidating nature of the banking experience was something which was not very helpful. So consumers were having trouble with this particular interaction. Consumers were asking, why should, if I have to take my money which the bank has kept, should I be suffered and the ignominy of such intimidation from the bank? So customers disliked the queuing, the arranging of meetings, reducing engagement with banks overall. And the absence of personal interaction limited the upselling and cross-selling opportunities for banks as well. Banks were just going by the book. So this created the entire background from which the market gap came about. Here, the traditional UK banks in 1980s, being conservative, bureaucratic and branch dependent, actually put out these long queues and intimidating bank managers in front of people, which pushed them away. One of the banks, Midland Bank, launched First Direct in 1989, and this was a 24/7 telephone only bank. So there were two very clear differentiators. One was 24/7, which made banking very easy for people to access, because earlier on you had to be there within banking hours, and which was a chore for people. But now 24/7 you could access over a phone call, which helped people to take their banking off regular hours and get other things packed into the day. This helped cater to customers who preferred remote banking and did not actually want to walk into a branch and make an appearance there. Here, there were certain key strategies and differentiation which was brought into play by the brand, and they put out customer service as their primary positioning because they made it feel that it was all about the customer and their comfort, and that helped staff empower themselves to resolve the issues directly rather than having to make the consumer beat around the bush. And this unique branding with a black and white logo, quirky advertising, for example, the banking without branches, it's extraordinary, is something which actually shifted the way people thought about banking. So, this entire paradigm shift is something which is critical for the consumer to understand first, be normalized with, and then get delighted by as the experience unfolds in front of them. And this actually saw rapid growth because 500,000 customers by 95, and it became top rated amongst customer satisfaction scores. So, they stuck to their guns. They actually delivered on their brand promise, and that is typically how customers started coming in droves towards First Direct. Now, First Direct had also the tenet of customer service, and hence it was easy for them to create the digital evolution and market repositioning for themselves as well. Now, they embraced technology very quickly and brought about digital banking as early as 97 with internet banking. And in 99, they introduced SMS transaction alerts, again making the process very transparent, very dependable and very trustworthy. In 2006, they joined Monilink, which was an early mobile banking system. By 2019, 98% of their interactions were digital, shifting away from telephone banking because now people had screens as interfaces and they could easily interact over those particular screens and get to their particular intended tasks. How the repositioning for modern customers happened was because most brands of banking were also moving in the same direction. By 2017, they shifted focus from great service to modern digital banking, and they again went from one advantage here, which was a differentiated advantage, to a first mover advantage here. So, they quickly learned that this would be helpful for them and moved that particular positioning in a very, very natural and simple way so that they could benefit from it. They put in hashtags like Money Wellness Campaign 2020, where financial wellness and personal finance education were brought in as part of the play. Why this was important is because not many people are generally inclined towards understanding nuances about finance. But the moment you are there as a support and as somebody who mentors or guides people, they are more than happy to receive said guidance. And the outcome was that profitable since 95 with almost 500,000 customers, it became the 16th largest bank in the UK. Now, Monilink again was a precursor to mobile banking apps, and it had a very clear launch in 2000s. It was an international mobile banking system that connects banks to mobile networks, and very easily it enabled account access, balance checks and transactions before smartphones became mainstream. It provided the necessary interface where smartphones hadn't yet hit the market already. And First Direct was the first UK bank to adopt Monilink in 2006. Now, Monilink had certain challenges and market shifts because of mobile network limitations. There were slow adoptions, but they also felt that there were security concerns because it was unfamiliar territory. So, people really did not want to get into the digital transactional space, but eventually it was replaced by banking apps with enhanced user experience and security. And the legacy from it was that it pioneered mobile banking, influencing modern financial technology. Now, initial market positioning wise, they knew that the target audience was young professionals comfortable with new technology, and they wanted to keep their conversation also very focused. They were not very keen on speaking with very imposing bank managers, but rather They wanted to get their banking needs met. So hence it was about customer service excellence, and that is what they turned into the core brand differentiator. Now the employees were trained with autonomy to handle customer queries directly, and their mission statement was pioneering amazing service. So it was a core service offering, and they kept to that particular core very, very strongly. 24/7 banking, which they offered, was a complete game changer. Nobody had offered this prior. Unlike traditional banks, First Direct operated 24/7, 365 days a year, and on Christmas Day 1989, customers called just to check if they were really open. And they found that this was true, and this round the clock availability set a new industry standard, and that really shifted things much to their favor. A distinctive brand identity got carved out of it. First Direct adopted a minimalistic black and white logo, unlike any other brand which had very ornate, traditional looking logos. And the advertising itself was very quirky and unconventional. For example, they put out a household object with the tagline, banking without branches. It's extraordinary. So whatever they put out in terms of their communication was the most unexpected and hence the most eye-catching thing when it came to marketing communications for banking. And within 2 months, First Direct had the highest brand awareness of any UK bank. So they did their job right. By 95, First Direct had almost 500,000 customers and consistently upheld high service standards and innovative marketing, because they understood that the audience wasn't shifting. In fact, it was only growing. And the audience was tech savvy and wanted to keep it that way. And they also wanted to project themselves as a brand which was tech savvy, which was there always with that particular kind of audience. And they knew exactly which particular pinpricks they had to solve. And that is how they maintained that particular capability over and above competitive brands. They differentiated themselves through a strong brand identity. Again, very unlike your regular branding for banks, which was very traditional, ornate, almost like a crest of a regal house or some sort of a duke or earl, legacy and such like. And they created high quality customer experiences at the delivery end of it. So the visibility, the kind of attitude it projected, and the actual service delivery, they all fell in line with the expectations of the target audience. So segmentation happened right because they got the right target audience. Targeting, obviously they got the right kind of formats to reach out, phone banking at that point in time, and positioning, the attitude, the kind of services which were delivered, the ease of use, etc. All of these things were part of what were delivered. So this has become the core of their success, the consistently high customer satisfaction aspect. Now, First Direct frequently ranked at the top of independent customer satisfaction service. Why? Because they were actually able to map it back to that one particular aspect which no other brand of banking was pushing out to the fore. They had imposing big offices, very intimidating managers, and a very unfriendly kind of business interaction, whereas these people were approachable 24/7 at the beck and call of the customer, and they also had individually empowered bankers who would over the phone solve direct problems of clients. That is typically how they operated. Various surveys like which looked at consumer groups, KPMG's Nunwood Customer Experience Excellence Rankings, and Moneywise Customer Service Awards. This was the large set of awards which they actually bagged, and for 6 times they actually did the Moneywise Customer Service Awards, and they got Britain's most trusted financial provider. So that is a big ticket item for them to gain, and this is something which also over time added to the PR and the overall brand visibility and likability of First Direct as a brand. So much so that over 80% of customers from the first year still bank with them today, because this is again what we've been talking about, lifetime value. When you create a brand which has got strong foundational tenets, you will actually see people come back and interact with you over a long period of time and increasingly give you the lifetime value as a brand. So, why did they then need a new differentiator? Because the world was changing, technology was changing, and there were lots of new entrants coming in, which would actually make it difficult for them had they not taken up that particular challenge. So, what was the challenge? By the late 2010s, great customer service was no longer a strong differentiator. You remember how we talked about points of parity versus points of difference. So, what had been a point of difference had actually shifted to a point of parity, and so therefore it had become hygiene, because everybody was doing it and it was the expected thing. So, normalization of that particular aspect was actually an advantage which had worn away and given up its lifetime value. Surveys now showed a low awareness of First Direct's full range of products which they offered. So, which was loans, there were credit cards, there was insurance, a lot of products were not known. So, the bank needed therefore to reposition itself beyond just being great at customer service. So, transition to a modern digital bank was the shift they took up in 2017. Why this new position was required? Because modernity fit well with their audience and added new members. They showed that they were technology driven bank, again adding to that particular belief system of that particular audience, and their marketing now focused on the mobile banking convenience, because people earlier had phones they would call up from fixed locations. Now they carried their phones along with them in the form of the mobile. So, incentives were given for switching to that particular format, and cutting edge digital services were touted, so that people understood that this was the top notch digital services that anybody could expect for in the banking space in the UK. And that is what also got mirrored in the ad campaign, featuring an astronaut leaping around the UK, symbolizing innovation and differentiation. Why the astronaut? Because the astronaut is seen as a space resident, and space is seen as a very frontier of technology and science. And hence, that was the perspective from which they were trying to project that this bank actually promotes that kind of engagement, and that kind of engagement with technology very specifically for its end consumer base. So, this also allowed them to increase the financial wellness aspect of things. This was something which actually got petered out in 2019 as the repositioning. Why was this important? Because technology again had moved from the point of differentiation to the point of parity. So, again the hygiene factor started playing in. So, they went back to financial wellness, which was more of the emotional approachability aspect of it. Why do you think financial wellness was very important? It was because people most often than not did not understand finance too well enough, and they were completely at sea, and they needed guidance and they needed support and mentoring. So, which is why financial wellness was where it was almost similar to being healthy. So, your money and your investments would now be healthy, and that was the wellness of your finances which was being projected now as a positioning by the brand. This was recognized the growing trend of personal wellness and financial literacy. So, personal wellness was picking up in a big way, and it was reflexive of that, and financial literacy, like we spoke of, was starkly missing in a large amount of the audience. So, hashtag money wellness is part of the campaign which they launched in 2020. This was made across digital, PR and social media, and it also introduced the Financial Wellness Index, which helped customers assess their financial health. So, all of these things together became part of the service provided and the positioning which they were strongly looking to project. So, business success was met and their market standing improved. First Direct has continuously been profitable every year since 95. Reasons behind is clear understanding of need gaps and innovation. So they have been profitable every year since 1995 and have had 1.45 million customers who are with them today, and ranks now as 16th largest bank in the UK. They continue to evolve while staying true to its core mission of innovation and customer experience. So CX is another big aspect of what they are all about. So both these factors together, they tend to drive the expectancy of a brand of banking to deliver something which is not really par for the course when people look at banking, or at least used to in those days. Now it has become even more challenging because things have become more democratized, more available, and every other player is able to match up in terms of hygiene to whatever you have on offer. So now the differentiability has therefore increased in terms of the challenge it positions. Therefore, the key takeaways: First Direct revolutionized UK banking by introducing the telephone-based banking system. They also added to customer service excellence and innovation, which were the core of its early success. But then you have to defend your territory. Hence, you consistently adapted to new technologies. So you got internet banking in place, mobile banking in place, financial wellness in place. All of these factors you brought in. And then you had clear strategic brand positioning, which contributed to sustained growth, and you became a prime example of how businesses must evolve to remain competitive. So you not only looked at how you could increase your capability of driving business at the consumer level, you also looked at how you fought against competition to create a definitive space and established your stake in the market. So with all of these things taken into consideration, we have seen how both to varying extremes of the exploration ladder, one Unilever and one First Direct, they showcase how strategic brand positioning, innovation, and customer-centric approaches drive long-term successes. In both cases, brands have been very, very committed to constantly evolve and innovate, and that has been the way they have kept their heads above water. Unilever, which is an FMCG global giant, has consistently evolved by leveraging consumer insights. Both in the case of First Direct, also human insight does come into play. Sustainability and digital transformation have been parts of what Unilever's further strategy also has been. Campaigns like Dove's Real Beauty, Lifebuoy's hygiene initiatives, and Ben & Jerry's activism highlight its purpose-driven branding. It also leads in sustainability, cutting plastic use, promotional ethical sourcing, and using AI for personalized marketing and e-commerce growth. First Direct, UK-based bank, disrupted the industry in 89 with a telephone-only banking model. It built a reputation for exceptional service, convenience, and innovative marketing. But as digital banking evolved, it repositioned itself as a modern digital bank and leveraged mobile apps and financial wellness initiatives. Both companies exemplify market foresight, customer engagement, adaptability, and prove that innovation, technology, and strong branding are crucial for sustained growth in competitive industries. So, with all these things taken into due consideration, you would see how very strategically each of these brands have looked at their consumer audience, mapped need gaps, innovated to keep an edge, and embraced technology. to stay ahead. With all these considerations, brands have been able to hold their own and expand across the world also, and keep their heels dug in their native markets, as we saw in the later example as well. So, with all this in mind, it makes sense for brand marketers and thinkers of tomorrow in the space of marketing to establish the right kind of audiences through segmentation, ensuring the right kind of media and messaging goes out to them through targeting, and keeping the right kind of stance in front of them, which is through the positioning aspect of things. So, segmentation, targeting, and positioning comes to a well-rounded understanding level end here. We'll capture a couple of more examples in terms of case studies in the upcoming conversation, which will close the entire approach when it comes to marketing for STP as a subject area. So, until next time, I shall see you.
Hello everybody. Now the discussion which I would try to make talk to you is about the excitement which I always feel, and I am sure you will also reciprocate as I proceed and when you do the course, is in the area of multivariate statistical problems and multivariate statistical analysis. So, what we mean by multivariate? So, we know that statistics is a subject where you have a lot of data, you try to analyze that using different type of techniques like estimation problem, MCMC techniques, then forecasting and the area of time series analysis, and then try to basically find out the best forecasting tool which you have, such that you are able to gain the maximum amount of information from a set of data. Now, in the recent past, as we see that multivariate statistics has really increased in a very exciting manner, and if I trace back to history, it has been going on slowly for the last about 70-80 years, but now the time has come where it is being used in a very big way, and the techniques which we all know, but which are being utilized with new vigor are in the area of, say for example, canonical correlation technique, in the area of factor analysis, in the area of conjoint analysis, in the area of clustering analysis, in the area of multi-dimensional scaling techniques, structural equation modeling, be it in the area of finance, be it in the area of engineering, be it in the area of social sciences, be it in the area of economics, such that you are able to gather the information from the data in such a way that it really gives you some useful set of information. Now, in the recent past, there has been also an explosion of large and complex data sets, but added to that there has also been a commensurate increase in the computing and the statistical techniques. So, obviously, the question comes that if the statistical techniques are there for so called small data, not the big data, not the data which is of terabytes and so on and so forth, where you use different type of computers to store the data, the question obviously comes that are those statistical techniques really relevant when we use them in the big data sense. The question is, they are not always relevant, they may not give you the best results. So, what we are seeing in years to come, and I feel very excited about that, is that how the new tools which we have already learned in statistics, in multivariate statistical analysis, are being redrawn, are being, say for example, remodeled in such a way that they can be utilized along with the techniques of computing in a very nice manner, that we are able to garner the information from big data very successfully and very nicely in such a way that they are able to portray a sense of information which we all long to have from big data be it in, say for example, medical sciences, be in the area of finance, be it in weather forecasting, be it in transportation, so on and so forth. So, obviously, it means that students, participants who are in a position with some brief mathematical background to take multivariate statistics and statistical tools as a subject in this program are assured of a very exciting future, where they can use these tools to both gain the knowledge as well utilize them in a very best practical sense, such that they are able to do some justice to the information which is given to them and get the best information from the data sets. I wish all the participants in this course the best of luck, and I am sure they will also reciprocate the excitement which I have for this type of courses. Thank you.